What's going on everyone, Supreme Kami over here, and today I'm going to be doing some alteration review for Uraven Gundam Final Battle Type, as well as the Big Scale Enhanced Double Zeta Gundam version Ka. And then in terms of both these units, I think they're fairly easy to say that they are currently one of the best melee-centric units to be looking around, just because of the fact that they actually does come with Pro Tag. So I think innately that really puts that right on top of like everything else that we have gone so far. So I did what I did for last time around when we had, actually for what is it, the Wayne Gundam Zero right there, because currently right now we do have, 5 different types of melee units. So I think the only typing we're currently missing is actually a P attribute. So if you guys are currently looking out for something of like a P attribute melee centric, I don't think right now is probably not the best time to summon on all these units, because the Barbaric is a tech attribute, the Eclipse is an S attribute, and then I went back for another S attribute for the Cold Sora, and then Enhanced Double Zeta as well as the Uraven. It's gonna be both, tech and speed again. So if you guys are purely looking for something P attribute, I don't think right now is not the best time at the moment. So until then, I'm pretty sure in the upcoming weeks or so, they should transition back into P attribute, and then for shooting build, they should transition back to speed attribute as well. So P attribute for melee, and then S attribute for shooting build. So hopefully sometime soon. But let's actually start things out with the Uraven Gundam. So there are only going to be 5 parts, and then throughout the part you will find that for computer it's going to be one of the more problematic tag to be looking around. And I kind of do understand that with that being the second tag, it does makes it not too enjoyable in terms of what kind of subslot you can be looking forward to. So that is going to be, I would have to say that is probably one of the biggest letdown. But let's actually take a look and see how they're doing. But in terms of overall stat, I think currently the Uraven is probably on like top line right now. Just purely looking at only 7-star parts, because only right now we only have 5 7-star parts. So let's kind of see, just kind of take a quick look and just kind of see how they're looking like. Armor wise is not too high on this one, but definitely your offensive value for melee specifically is extremely high. And I do find that the melee defense and no, the shot defense on this build is actually ridiculously high as well. So that is definitely something to take notes of as well. But in terms of overall portrait wise, so here, okay, so this one is actually a double power EXQ power boosting, while the first one is locked to a speed attribute. The second one is actually going to be locking you out to only facing when type neutrality. So that is actually not the best case scenario, because like I said again, there's probably, I don't know why you would run like a neutral typing or facing off type neutral. So if that is only the case, so only one third of the time you may be able to proc this. This really depends on what kind of maps you're looking at. So I don't know why, just not quite sure why they have it as only neutral enemy. So so with that being said, I feel like the head is not really that good of a choice. Although like I said, this one does come with Pro Tag, but I feel like pairing this up with for computer, this kind of hurts it by a lot. So although the stat is extremely high, but I don't think with what the trait is doing and what the word type we're looking at, I don't think it's that top tier in a way. So probably gonna be a hot skip for me overall. So yeah, so what do they call it? They call it extra limited change. So I'm not sure if that's actually a name for this unit. That's kind of weird, I guess. I don't know. But all right, let's kind of move on to the chest and see how we're looking at. Overall, wow, look at that. Yeah, well, I did kind of preview this already, but having that 10k shot defense is actually unheard of. Like, I feel like they just simply redistributed all the stat to the defensive value for this build specifically. You guys can definitely see melee and shot defense is like breaking 10k, like literally. So I'm not really sure what they were really planning for, but in terms of the torso for this guy, so it's actually pretty good. You got the optimal words tag over here, pro tag, and high firepower. So definitely something you kind of want. So if you do take a look at the recently ones that were released, you guys can see that they're just jam packing high firepower, close combat, and even high mobility. I think there was a certain point in time where pro tag was just not really prominent in terms of like trying to find actual protect build, like protect parts that you can actually slap it on. I know that there is that big scale Ixia, which I think to this day is still one of the best sub-slot battery if you do need something per se. Okay, in terms of the part tray over here, so when you have protect active, revive with 75 armor at once. Keep that in mind, this is literally on max. So if we take a look at base level 1, we are getting a 50% already, so that is extremely high. So okay, like I don't know what kind of situation you will really want to revive on your build, but I feel like for those that are building like let's say like a cooldown reduction or a enemy power reduction type build, if you slap one of these on, you can literally stall the match for like an extended amount like period of time. So I feel like this portrait is not going to be for everyone in terms of revive. But in terms of like for new players, if you guys do have this torso, for example, and you are taking on some pretty difficulty, let's say a free mission or even story mission, I do feel like having that revive on the spot can save you, can definitely save your life for sure. But in terms of altering it, I think this one would need to alterate if you do want to gain another 25 at base level 1 and then 40 at max power boosting right there. So I would say if you guys do need something of this caliber, this is definitely a good option. But if you're talking about for like long-term players, if you guys are able to just simply plow through any event, I don't think you guys will ever really need revive, except for the fact you want to build like a funny build that you want to have revive on, so your friends can just kind of challenge it. But yeah, I feel like for new players specifically, just hopping into any event, I think having a revive is definitely a decently option. So yeah, but in terms of altering, I really would focus on specifically all power boosting, like is it melee power boosting or EXQ power boosting. I tend to look out for those specifically because they will definitely grant you the most amount of damage dealing, like in terms of damage output. But this one having that help recovery can make it depending on what kind of tier play you guys are talking about. So but the armor wise, this one is, oh gosh, definitely something not to sleep on for sure. So alright, moving on to the arm. So the arm does have ourselves a custom EXQ. So I'm not really surprised that they would slap this on as an arm EXQ, because I don't think they would actually come with a good portrait. I don't think so far none of the top or none of the big scale, or excuse me, none of the 7-star melee central unit, I don't think they have portrait. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. I don't think any of them at the moment has that. So yeah, we still, oh no, Cold Sword does have it, but Cold Sword doesn't have that optimal word tag or the trait, unfortunately. So yeah, but alright, let's see what the arm can do for us over here. In terms of the stat, I did actually include the enhanced double zeta just on there, but don't really just look at that number, because you have to keep that in mind. The enhanced double zeta is an arm plus the integrated shield, so that's why you guys can see some enormous amount of stat. But if you're talking about the overall stat from the other four next to your Uraven, is actually still pretty good so far, and all the other one hasn't really fallen up that much yet. So that's pretty good actually. So but in terms of overall word tag wise, definitely this is the top choice, because this one does come with pro tag as well as high firepower. So definitely an optimal situation to be looking at. So yeah, this is a pretty good part to be looking at for sure. In terms of EXQ base over here, so this one is actually jam packing a lot. So okay, so this one's gonna raise your speed by 20%, also gonna raise your ally melee attack up by 39%, so yourself included as well as raise your running capacity of your squad by 25%. So what is that base level 1? I'm pretty sure it should be 20, 30, and 20. Okay, so the first and the last trait or the effects did not change at all. The only difference is only going to be the melee portion of it. So I think this army skill could potentially be pretty good actually. I haven't actually used it myself yet, so I'll definitely be doing EXQ showcase of him. Just want to see what kind of maximum power we can be looking at. But not about overall. I think the arm is just unfortunate that currently the top few 7-star melee arm is not really coming in with like good portrait. So that is still something that we are currently waiting for. So but definitely a good part to be looking at so far. But yeah. As for alteration, I'm not gonna give too much in depth for like for custom EX skill or just any EX skill in general. I feel like all in all they should come in at roughly about the same power. You know, like S minus power at base EX skill level 1, and then maxing out at solid S power at EX skill level 10. So it's just really more or less like your own personal preference or like what you really like. But in terms of this one, not really giving like a health recovery, that can be something that I feel like a lot of people just take into consideration a lot. So since this one does not have like a heat recovery, and I don't know at the moment, I don't know if it's awakenable yet. So what I mean by awakenable, so let's say if you have the unicorn shield attached, so if it transforms into the destroy mode shield, which means like the side panel actually opens up, so that means it's an awakenable EX skill. In terms of that respective, me personally, I don't really like too much awakening EX skill, just because of the fact that damage does tend to get cut when you transition from one awakening. So let's say you went from Transam and then you went to new type destroyer mode or the NTD EX skill. So they don't really correlate each other, so that's why you cancel out the buffs. So that's why all in all, I don't really like using too many awakening EX skill. So yeah, but let's see what the leg has for us over here. So those are definitely going to be some just kind of some things that I'll point out for you guys to just kind of see if you guys want to alter it and all that. So but moving on to the leg, so the leg right now is actually one of the highest ones. So but look at those, look at those defense. Like, let me know how good they are. Like, both of them are almost breaking 10k again, so that is crazy actually. But the shot attack is not anything of a worth mentioning, so yeah. But this one does come up with EX skill. We have a Mars army over here. So this one, I recall you should alterate it because like if you want to do some good damage, because prior to alteration we're only looking at C minus power. So definitely something you will have to alterate in order to gain some enormous power. So definitely something you guys, if you guys do want to alterate it, no, if you guys do want to use this EX skill as a regular basis, do make sure to alterate it to gain the maximum output. So this one is just in terms of the attack buffer, it's actually after you finish the EX skill then you get the buffing. So it really depends on what kind of playstyle you're looking at. So me personally, I would like my awakening buffs or just the attack buffs like right as I'm executing it, so I can gain that additional attack power boosting as well. But since this one is only afterwards, so that really decreases the overall value. But if you guys do like the EX skill, definitely something you guys can kind of pick up. And the overall stat, just that alone, I feel like at this current time does make it worth the alteration if you guys do get it. But then again, the wartag wise is really throwing me out for sure. But definitely a good option for stat staking. But if you're talking about the wartag wise, definitely going to be a big problem. And then in terms of EX skill, it's not really going to be too fashionable, not going to be anything too flashy. So so that is going to be something you guys should just kind of keep that in the back of you guys' mind. But in terms of the backpack is definitely the top pick for the set over here. Fairly one of the higher stats, so it's not really by that much actually, but easily close to the barbaric actually. What makes this backpack more powerful than the Escalabius is just the overall wartag. Having pro tag actually does help a lot of build. This kind of, you can say, merge a little bit better depending on what kind of other wartag you're looking at. So this is definitely a solid option if you guys do ever put a backpack. This one is going to come with a double 40% power boosting. So in terms of the second portrait, I don't really know how I feel about that, because that one is only limited to 1 minute and 30 seconds, which is actually quite a long time. So I don't see any point of like any battle extending for that long. So this one definitely can be a solid option if you can guarantee that all your matches does fall below a minute, or even like a minute and 30 seconds, because after that, you just completely lose out on this 40% trait. I'm pretty sure that any event that we currently have, let's say specifically, let's just kind of call it the limited time multi-mission boss, I think a lot of people should be able to take it out within the first minute and 30 seconds anyway. So this can be a good option, but if not, I think the safest bet right now, if you guys do have it, it's definitely going to be the Escalabius backpack, because that one does come with a 40% trait. So definitely something to cover this one while you guys don't want to deal with the army or or the timer restriction right there. But definitely a solid part because this one is going to be your 40% trait, so definitely something just kind of good to have for say. But overall, I really think that there's really not really that much to just kind of talk about. I think some of them are just not really that good. I feel like the backpack is definitely the must alterate, and then all the other one, maybe the torso, I guess, and all the other one are definitely going to be up to your discretion. For the EXQ, do keep that in mind. Any alteration does make the EXQ a little bit stronger, but definitely do have to be cautious about when to alterate and stuff. But definitely the overall kit is definitely good. Having prototype, no problem. But alright, so now moving on to the big scale enhanced double Zeta. I feel like in terms of big scale, there isn't much to really talk about because all the parts are actually good. So you are gonna gain that non-conditional 20% either main slot. So if you do have this on his main slot, for example, whatever your sub slot is, that will gain a 20% burst, and then whatever word tag that is compatible, then you get another 10 on 10. So that's like in total you can get, if you're talking about optimal, trying to optimize your just word like sub slotting and matching the word tag, you can get roughly up to a 40% like just a stat transfer. So definitely something to just kind of keep that in mind. So but in terms of big scale, I think all the part definitely going to be good for all trading because of just what big scale can actually provide. But you guys can definitely see that in terms of the overall stat that we're looking at. The big scale double enhanced data is actually going to be a lot more lower than what we would see from other units. I think that is definitely quite understandable because this one is going to be a big scale, and they do know that in terms of subslot ability, it's going to be monstrous. A non-conditional 20%, that is going to save your just your raw stat wise over here. So you're not really that far anyway, so you're only looking at roughly about maybe 500-ish points. But in terms of having a non-scaling boosting up to 20%, that is going to play a major role later on. But let's actually start things off with the head of the enhanced double Zeta. The enhanced double Zeta head is definitely something to alterate because prior to alteration, you're not really gaining that B plus power. So this is definitely something to have to just kind of max out. Word tag on this one is definitely phenomenal as well. Pro tag and high power, definitely something we have been dreaming of for like a long time already. So in terms of the head right here, the EXQ, this is our very first EXQ that is able to counter other EXQ. This one is able to counter bindable. So most Obyakuzi EXQ are actually bindable, so this is literally gonna counter it. So there's actually, so I did post a video yesterday talking about how the EXQ actually looks like, so you guys definitely check out how the EXQ performs. But overall, I think I am pretty satisfied. So in terms of the effect time, so this is literally the amount of time you have your gauge can be, let's say, be active, and then after that you can just kind of quickly reactivating it by using the same EXQ again. So in terms of this EXQ, it won't do any damage until you're really countering some other people because the EXQ. So it may not be the best case scenario to run this at some event, but definitely a very unique EXQ to look at. So it's gonna buff, having some health recovery is obviously gonna be nice. Some attack buffing and as well as some melee defense, so not bad actually. Pretty solid effects line that we're getting. So moving on to the torso now. So in terms of the torso, I think the first thing first, like the thing you will see right out of the spot, is that extremely high armor. So coming in at 11,300 is definitely something we have never seen before. So I'm pretty sure if you're looking at this at base star 6 star at max, I'm pretty sure this should be roughly about maybe 8k or so. So that is extremely powerful. In terms of the overall stat, definitely going to be a little bit lower than what you can expect, just judging from the other parts over here. So let's say maybe it's actually not too terrible. You're roughly about 700 points off from the Uraven, and do keep that in mind, this is a big scale, so that non-transferable 20% or non-conditional 20% subslot is actually to be pretty powerful. So Project Transformer, so Transformer obviously going to be more or less like the outlier from the tech wise over here, but definitely overall fits the overall theme of, let's say, what the enhanced double Zeta can actually do. And do keep that in mind in terms of this guy over here. Once you do get this up to 7 star, you will be able to unlock some different types of word tag, whether or not, I believe it's whether or not you have the P attribute or not. Definitely gonna be something I want to try out, because this right here, this unit right here itself is allowing us to be able to unlock more vortex, because this one we already had the other attribute. So that is definitely gonna be something quite interesting. So if the other one, let's say the P attribute has let's say what high firepower, that is definitely going to make this part a lot more powerful than it could be. So in terms of EX skill, so this is going to be your biosensor over here, so it's just going to be your regular awakening over here. So compared to this one I don't know, maybe like, I think you guys know me already, I don't really care too much about like actual awakening skill, because what they can do can actually be replaced by some archer stand, combat stand, your offensive up, you know, etc and etc. I think they should have around the same time as like in terms of effect times. So yeah, I don't really generally like these times over here. So yeah, I mean, you can definitely alterate it at your own discretion, whether or not you just want it purely for the EX skill base over here, or you purely want it for the stat. I think the overall stat really speaks for itself. Being a big scale is just going to be pretty good overall in general. So moving on to the arm. So yeah, the arm, you know, actually does have some pretty incredible stat. I think there's no doubt about that, but do keep that in mind. In terms of arm, this is the arm plus integrated shield. So if you do put this on the main slot, you will be able to you will completely lose out the ability to subslot any shields. So what that means is you're not going to be able to put some, you know, powerful shield, like, you know, I'm just gonna say again, the most powerful shield in the game, the Cosmos shield. You just won't be able to place that, and you are going to be losing out on a lot of power. Although the flat stat right now is going to be some, you know, what, 19,000, almost 20,000, and that defense is like 15,000, you know, 16,000 ish over here. They look pretty powerful, but you know, in translation, having some percentage power boosting is just a lot more better. Word type wise is not really that good again, having transformer, but you know, then I said again, if we do unlock this guy as 7-star, you will be able to unlock what the P attribute has in terms of the overall word tag. So yeah. Alright, so in terms of, you know, what the portrait has in store for us over here, I don't really like the overall portrait that this one is having. So for 20 seconds after it should be being, I don't know why I say be attacked it. I guess that really works. So after 20 seconds, be attacked it with EX skill. So that is literally not really that good. If you get attacked by an EX skill, you're done. You're gone. So so I don't really like the fact that they lock both the condition to an EX skill. So this is pretty much gonna be one of your, you can say, double death trade, because once you get EX skill, you're dead. No pun intended. So yeah, that is actually pretty annoying. So yeah, I just kind of skip this one. You're not really going to see too much from this right here. So yeah, kind of unfortunate, you know. They thought they were going with the right direction, but not really at the same time. So kind of skip that. Moving on to the legs. So the leg is going to be our next 40% trade legs over here. So in terms of the overall leg, I feel like this one right now could innately replace the P attribute Justice, the big scale Justice, because the big scale Justice is actually doing the same thing as this one over here. But you know, this one is giving out a whopping better trait, better armor wise. So I feel like, you know, if you guys do have the big scale Justice work on already, don't transition over to this one just because this one has a big scale or a 7-star rarity. Do keep that in mind. Like eventually, right, you know, I don't know how long it is, right? They will definitely release some of other unit being able to go to 7-star. So reinvesting the same part is actually not that good. You know, just the sheer amount of resources that is needed is just not going to be worth overall. You know, unless you're someone who is able to put in a lot of, you know, money into the game, that are able to just, you know, I don't care about the part that I upgraded, I can just move on to the next one. If you're that type of player, you know, obviously more power to your hand. But if you're not, you know, just really free to play player, or just general players that want to get some good stuff that you have invested already, don't transition over to this one. This one is actually going to be better, you know, if I want to be honest with you guys, because this one is locked in pro tag, which is definitely going to be one of the tag you want to activate for your melee build anyways. But in terms of the big scale Justice, that one is locking you down to a high firepower. So that, you know, may not be the best case scenario depending on what kind of build you want to build. So this is why I feel like locking to the primary tag is actually not too bad. Even the condition is not too bad anyways, like 20,000 should be able to be satisfied easily if you have any, you know, parts to 6-star or even 5-star. So not too bad. This is definitely gonna be the next chase part. So let's say if you are someone who does not have the big scale justice and later on you are able to pick this one up, definitely invest into this one for sure, because this one is literally the best one we have in game. So good word tag wise and pro tag high power, definitely the best optimal setup you can ever ask for. Alright, moving into the backpack now. Let's see what the backpack has in store for us over here. The backpack wise, you are going to be continue to see some incredibly high armor wise right there. So I guess they really redistributed all the stat to like some other places. But do keep that in mind. Big scale, man. Big scale is gonna make this a lot more better than it seems to be. So that is definitely something to just kind of keep that in mind. Attack wise over here, 6k, and that's 6.4k on the defensive value right there. So not too bad, not too shabby. Just gonna be the word tag that I will nitpick about having transformers. So yeah. In terms of EX skill base over here, so this is considered like a custom EX skill, but not really at the same time, because this is a custom EX skill, but there's no bindable on this one over here, so you can't really counter it. But this one does go up to a S power, alright. Also does have a squad, you know, a melee attack up to 24%. So this is actually a pretty weak effects over here, so you're not gaining any additional ones. So kind of unfortunate, but yeah. So like, all right, so in terms of this specific EX skill, they actually have the same thing, but in terms of what they did for the P attribute, they actually have it in the hybrid beam saber instead, like literally the actual handheld melee weapon. So kind of interesting how they thought about that right there. But in terms of the EX skill, I feel like this can be a pretty good candidate if we talk about using it in arena specifically, because you are getting some attack buffing, so that should be able to carry out some additional, you know, if we do have some buff trade, that should be able to add alongside that 24%. So not too bad actually, and definitely something to kind of consider about. Alright, so the last thing we need to talk about is actually going to be your melee weapon over here. So in terms of overall melee weapon, this one right here, I feel like overall later down the road it's not going to age too well, because you're not getting any melee defense. And as you guys do know that we currently don't have the highest rarity in terms of the conversion gear. So the one that transfers some of your defense, like what, 40% currently, 40% of your defense to your overall attack. Like once we have the 50%, you know, conversion gear, I feel like just anything that has defense would be able to outshine the one that don't. This one, although coming in at what 17,000 is pretty high, but if you do consider the other one that we have currently, let's say for example the code Sora, the beam saber, right now it's coming in at what 17,400, so slightly over that. And that one has what? That one does have some melee defense, so if you consider the fact that it eventually get that 50%, so this right here will literally widen the gap by a lot. So I think same thing you can say for the Eclipse beam saber, the Type 72 beam saber. That one right now is only a little bit marginally smaller or lower than the hybrid beam saber right here, but if you're talking about the 50% conversion gear later down the road, that will literally shatter this, you know, hybrid beam saber by a landslide. But in terms of overallness of this portrait, I think this is definitely something people might invest into in terms of trying to work out on a cooldown reduction build, because this one is going to offer you a 23% over here, so not too bad. You know, if you are looking at the conjunction of, you know, the barbaric, that one is also supporting a T attribute and also boosting another 23%. So I think tech attribute right now is sitting pretty well in terms of all these cooldown traits right there. So another additional 40% when you do have to the max, so not bad actually. So pretty good. So I think overall, you know, the enhanced double zeta definitely gonna be some good parts. You just kind of archery. Big scale property is gonna carry this guy by a long shot anyway. So with the additional effects of, you know, that's you can say the hidden feature of the actual 7-star functionality, you can self-slot some, you can get some other word tags. So that is like a fantastic kind of case right there. But yeah, with that being said, that is going to be pretty much it in terms of the overall alteration review. Do let me know which part are you guys going to alterate, if you guys did get any of these part over here, and like, are you guys primarily, I'm pretty sure a lot of people will primarily use it for the stat staking, definitely. But in terms of double enhanced data arm, please don't put it in the main slot. At least try to put it in the the actual sub slot. Although the set is going to be reduced by half, but you are still going to be able to use some good potential shield portrait. So with that being said, that is going to be pretty much it, and I'll catch you guys all on the next one.